And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Welcome to the Reasonably Fine Art Talk. It is the first Reasonably Fine Art Talk of 2024. How did that happen? Last time I checked, it was about 1978, but so it goes. It's a joy to be here, and it's a joy that you're choosing to join this. What I wanted to do today was to talk a little about what I've been up to in the studio and kind of go through my process about converting an idea into a painting, hopefully a series of paintings. Hi, Claire Bureau. Hi, everybody. Happy 2024. Happy 2024, everybody. Hi, Jim. Good that you're here. So I'm just going to get right into it. This will probably be a pretty quick, Reasonably Fine Art Talk. Betty Sue is off. She's in the midst of doing errands around Austin because she's about to go out on a little tour this weekend. But let's get going here. So I'm the one who's having to do the behind the scenes stuff. I'll try to monitor the comments and toss them up on the screen when the time comes. So what happened at the end of October, I was doing the plein air in San Angelo, Texas. And I discovered that there is a nonstop flight from Dallas-Fort Worth to Bozeman, Montana. Now, in Bozeman, Montana, next fall, or now this fall, I have a solo show at a gallery called Old Main Gallery. I've never been to southern Montana. I've been across northern Montana on the Empire Builder, the Amtrak train, but the southern Montana has been a mystery to me, and it's a place I've always wanted to visit, not only because I have really two galleries there, Old Main in Bozeman and Illume West in Phillipsburg, but it's also really storied in railroad lore. The Northern Pacific Railroad, which called itself the Main Street of the Northwest, went through southern Montana. And it just is something I've always wanted to see. So I flew to Bozeman, got a rental car, and drove on a back road out to, north of Livingston, and then drove down to Livingston. Coming into Livingston, this was the scene that greeted me. This is the Teslau Inc. Grain and Hay elevator on the outskirts of Livingston. Now, these grain elevators are iconic, and in Montana, they kind of have the same role that covered bridges have in Vermont, where I'm from. Except they were even more central, it seems, to a town's identity. When this is done today, I'm gonna put two songs in the comments section, videos or links to two songs. And the two songs are gonna be Fred Eaglesmith's White Rose and Chris Whitley's Big Sky Country. And the reason for those, I will explain. The reason I'm going to put the White Rose song up is because that's a song about a gas station, how it was, the line is, and that big white rose up on that sign was the innocence in all our lives. But the line I wanted to quote was, that neon sign was the heart and soul of this here one-horse town. And it's like it lost its will to live the day they tore it down. Grain elevators out west were really the markers for many of these small towns. Now, Livingston is a railroad center, and Livingston will survive without its grain elevator. But the good folks of Livingston, when this elevator was in danger of being taken down because there's the scale of modern grain processing renders these obsolete, they banded together and they've saved this elevator. And it still looks nice and industrial. I like it a lot. And so I really want in this show, I want to since what I focus a lot on my art is the disappearance of these markers of small town America. Um, I want to try my hand at portraying grain elevators, but and it's as challenging as trying to portray a covered bridge in a non-cliched manner. How do I go about that? Well, I took about 200 and no, about 1,000 photographs while I was out driving around southern Montana, uh, just to get material to work on this winter and spring. Uh, and this kind of looming image uh, really struck me. Um, Now, of course, it was a beautiful sunny day, and I don't tend to do beautiful sunny stuff, so I'm going to mess around with that, and you'll see. You'll see how I approached it. So that was my source photograph I was working from. I did do a sketch, but it was from the other side, an on-site sketch. So I was looking the other direction. I haven't yet done a painting off of that. But taking this photograph, when I got back home, I converted it to black and white, so I was just seeing the big shapes. Because to me, these grain elevators are they're an almost human shape, an almost living shape. It's kind of like War of the Worlds, except they're benevolent. Except in real life, they could explode on you. But they kind of are this hulking, protecting structure around these small towns. So I converted the photograph to black and white, probably bumped the contrast up a little bit so I'd be seeing the big shapes, because to me the shapes are what really convey the emotion. It's how I like to, when I squint down, I see the big shapes, right? And so when doing a sketch, you're trying to be as much of the photographs is having to serve as proxy for your being there. So if I can look at the big shapes, that's what I want to be doing. Now the sign in the foreground is for a fishing a turnoff to a fishing spot on the Yellowstone River. So I eliminated that. I didn't put the trees in. I may put the trees in later versions of it. I did like the utility pole. So that was the photograph I was looking at. That was my sketch on the right. Next slide, please, Charles. Oh, it's hard to see that. Let's see, can I go up? Yeah. On the left here was a second sketch. Oh, so the previous slide, this slide, that sketch is in my sketchbook, okay? This next one is on a block of Rembrandt watercolor paper. So I did a very simple pencil sketch, and then I'm not trying to make a great watercolor. It truly is a study, a watercolor study of those big shapes. A little bit of value concern, but mostly just the shapes. Does it work graphically? That felt like it was sort of what I wanted to be achieving. What is the sketch and watercolor size, Jim asks? Probably about 6 inches by 6 inches. What we're looking at right now, 6 inches by 6 inches, I'd say. So then I took my pencil sketch and I projected it onto a surface. Of course, I didn't take a picture of it at that time because you don't want to jinx yourself, ladies and gentlemen. My concern is if I take pictures all the way through the process of a work, it's going to make it something go horribly wrong. But this is my projection setup. It is a 15-year-old, getting on 20-year-old MacBook that doesn't work except I use it for projecting, and then a halogen light projector, also about 15 years old. and I project it onto a surface. This picture is me projecting a painting I had done, a 6x12 painting I had done of a building in Butte, Montana, onto a 12x24 panel. But it gives you an idea of exactly, I mean, it's just very straightforward projecting it, and then I outline in pencil. At the same time, I'm thinking about, I'm going to put myself back in here. At the same time, oh no, don't want to see that much of myself. At the same time, I'm looking at other works that convey an atmosphere that I love. There's a woman named Elsa, is it Kabova? Oops, go back there, Charles. Can't see, it's being blocked by the technical information about the StreamYard platform. But Elka there, she does a Facebook group where I just follow her. She puts up a lot of paintings that I really love. And she put up this painting called the Skater. And the way it has the misty buildings and then the sharpness of the black and white, the shapes against the snow, I really loved. And then on the right there is a Patrick Lee painting that he did here in Bellows Falls, Vermont. This is the view kind of from my studio across the bridge to downtown Bellows Falls. And again, there's that beautiful atmosphere and then the starkness of the black and white. Now, Patrick is not doing the shapes in the foreground to the same starkness that Fremont there is doing with the Skater, but to me there's a communality there. So these images, this whole potpourri, this whole bouillabaisse of images is going on in my head as I'm conceptualizing. Now, let's see, this question was, what watercolor brand did I use? Needing to get some new ones running out. I'm using Rembrandt watercolors, but that is partially because I am a brand ambassador for Royal Talons. And so consequently, I am able to get them very inexpensively. Tamara says she's not getting any sound or video. Everyone else is getting sound and video, right? Just let me know. I'm sorry you're not, but you'll be able to watch this later, Tamara. If you're not getting any sound or video, what are you watching? That's mysterious. Anyway, thank you, Helen. Loud and clear, she says. All right, next slide, please, Charles. Hey, it's Gentle. It's Gentle. It's Hal. Hal from Philadelphia. How are you? Okay, so then Charbonneau is joining us. Hi, Charbonneau. Then I did my underpainting onto, as I say, I had projected the image onto a 20x20 stretched canvas. I just happened to have one lying around. I don't particularly like it. I just happen to have it. I don't like it because it isn't stretched terribly well and tends to get kind of baggy. But if you spray the back of it with water, it tightens it up. So I did the pencil trace. Then the left-hand picture is my palette. So with watercolors, actually these happen to be golden, the liquid watercolors. Transparent oxide red and Payne's gray. Just a very, very watery version of that. The brush I primarily used is a rosemary. It's about a 3-inch. You can see that it's a synthetic. And I just laid in very, very light, simple, getting the shapes in. Now, what I was thinking about when I was working on this part of it was where I'm going for in the color world. The insets here are two paintings that I did last year that I was quite happy with. The top one is the Lord is in this place, how dreadful is this place, which won a prize at the Arno Art Museum in Elmira, New York, the coveted Best in Show at the Arnott Art Museum in Elmira, New York. And then the bottom one is a painting I did in San Angelo, at a ranch outside San Angelo called Bruja, of that tree. And while those two paintings are not going to, the painting I'm working on is not going to look like those two paintings. Those two paintings are informing how I'm approaching this most recent painting. The fact that the fire tower goes into that kind of reddish brown rather than being as dark as it really would be, that is influenced very much by, I'm going to flip back one, that Patrick Lee. That there, Patrick Lee, he is a master of changing the actual chroma of things while keeping the intensity of value. So I was thinking about Patrick when I did the Lord is in this place, and I want to carry that same sense of monumentality and mystery and looming into this new painting. And then the Bruja painting of the tree, the way that the black line in the very center of that carries the viewer up into kind of the hollowed out trunk of the tree was also playing in what I was thinking about the light dark dynamic in the painting itself. Jeff asks, what is my goal and purpose of my underpainting process? The goal and purpose is to, well, it's to get, why do I underpaint rather than start to put the finish colors on? I want to get the basic shapes in there and see if it's working before I apply oil paint. I want to be able to, if it's acrylic paint, I have much less qualms about painting out large sections back to pure titanium white. It's just easy to move stuff around early on. So I use the acrylic to basically make sure that I'm on the right track. And there is the nearly finished painting and the finished painting. So underpainting, and then finished painting, and it's pretty much Payne's gray, burnt sienna, transparent oxide red, raw umber, cobra raw umber. All these are cobra water mixable oils. And then there was a little bit of like a primary blue that I put into that sky, as you can see on the upper right. The hills in the background are really just that underpainting with kind of a dry brush scumble of the sky color down onto it. It's quite remarkable. Look at that underpainting. Look at the hill on the left side of the grain elevator. It's really unchanged except for a semi-transparent pulling down of the sky color into it. The only medium that I use with the Cobra water mixable oils in the studio really is either water mixable linseed oil or water mixable safflower oil. The new Cobra water mixable linseed oil I am loving. It dries pretty quickly. It flows beautifully with the Cobras. It doesn't bead up in the same way. Bead up, ladies and gentlemen, not beat up. It does not bead up in the same way that the Winsor Newton safflower oil did on acrylic gesso primed surfaces. I'm really happy with it. They just introduced it last year. So the big first pass of painting is there on the left, and that's getting the values within range. There's a lot of stepping back and drinking coffee and going, while doing this. And it was a little redder than I wanted. The value being, this is where I would like to be Patrick Lee, but I really can't be Patrick Lee. I'm not as free as he is. I am a little bit more tightly wound. And where Patrick is willing to let the value or the chroma be crazily different from reality, I still wanted to darken it down. Look to the right of the grain elevator, that dark shape, that is the freight yards, freight cars, and just industrial stuff. I wanted that to have a gravity to it. So I did several passes of raw umber, just a raw umber oil wash on top of the more reddish, as is shown on the left. And then also the utility pole on the right, you can see how it almost ghosts out. That's the underpainting visible through the, I have a cat who's disagreeing with me, but she just left. That is the underpainting visible through the sky that I had applied. Then I went over it and sharpened it on the final version on the right. To me, let's see, Sandra says, I've had a problem with pilling of the base layer when using Cobra water mixables when glazing. I have until using the Cobra linseed oil on, are you talking about it pilling on an acrylic gesso? And what were you using as the medium, Sandra? Try the Cobra linseed oil as your medium. Helen says, nice job on the white negative space shapes bottom left to right. That is a great lead in, Helen, because I am going to now go to the next version. We'll just look at it large here. And this is where I think about Chris Whitley's song, Big Sky Country. Now, Chris Whitley was a blues man, but not, he was a modern day blues man, but not in the playing a zillion notes all at once kind of blues. He was not a Stevie Ray Vaughan type. He was much more like a modern day Robert Johnson in that he was a truly haunted individual. He died at age 45, very effectively self-medicating himself to death. I'm a huge fan of him and his music. He did one record in 1991 that to me is one of the classic, it's a near perfect album. It's called Living with the Law. I will, as I say, at the end, I'll throw some links in, both on YouTube and on Facebook. But Chris Whitley had a song called Big Sky Country. Coincidentally, Montana's Big Sky Country. And I read an interview with him. It was the closest he ever came to having a hit. And to me and to all of us who love the Living with the Law album, it is a gorgeous, striking, utterly occupied song. In the interview I read with Chris Whitley, he said that to him, it always just sounded like a big, dumb Prince song. I think about that when I think about the foreground of this painting, because when growing up, looking at those Teach Yourself to Paint books, I always liked the paintings about 2 or 3 steps before the finish, when there were still these big kind of graphic light dark areas, and then the painter would end up painting in everything and it would lose that kind of graphic power. I am trying to take the lesson of Chris Whitley, of the fact that he thought Big Sky Country sounded like a big dumb Prince song, and remember that most of us can't do what he did. I'm going to try to trust that most people don't see the big shapes exactly the same way that I do. That juxtaposition that I've got going there between the sharp edges and then the very misty things is what gives this painting power. Even though that light dark dichotomy is the easiest thing for me. Chris Whitley could write a song like Big Sky Country in his sleep, so he didn't like to do it anymore. I can do this graphic stuff easily. It's how my brain works. It's not how most people's brains work. So I'm going to try to remember that as my strength. And I urge all of you to think about the thing that people compliment you on, that to you is the most obvious, easiest thing. Well, it's obvious and easy to you. It does not mean that it's obvious and easy to the next person. Okay, I'm going to look at, I'm still answering Sandra's technical question here. She says the first layer of Cobra applied with water, that layer pills when glazing over the top. So when you glaze on top of that, you should never glaze with water. No, Cobra and water are not, that's not a glazing medium. Glazing is always going to be a fat layer. Water is a thin layer. We can keep this discussion going afterwards, Sandra. Just feel free to message me, but also feel free to answer here, and I'll see if I can respond. Paul asks, what defines what edges you keep? Well, let's look at this particular painting. The edges I keep. Well, the edges that were given to me by just light, on the left-hand side, the way the light is hitting the side of the grain elevator, that and if I paint the front of the grain elevator and the hill, that gives me the edge of the building that is in light. If it was uniformly sharp all the way around, I don't think it would work. I want that structure to be massive. I want it to be towering. And I'm seeing kind of a snow squall passing through, where things are simultaneously sunny and there's also this shroud of snow coming in. So it's logical that would be in the upper reaches of that building. And you think about Tibor Nagy's skyscrapers. He breaks them up. Usually they're pretty solid down toward the ground, and then they break up into the sky. So that's where I soften edges up at the top. You'll see in a minute the next iteration of this painting. I'm playing with it even more. The other thing is, look on the right-hand side of the painting. That's where all the interesting, delicious little filigree shapes are. There's kind of a pipe between the top cupola and the main structure of the building. Then there is just a little bit of footsie detail on the edges on the right. And I think there's a ladder going up. That's just done with squeegee. That's very simple, but it gives the effect of a great deal of detail. Thank you, Helen. She says, that edge on the right of the silo, the broken line is superb. Thank you, I appreciate that. Gabrielle asked Sandra, could it be there wasn't dry enough? We'll do a whole thing about challenges, and we'll do another thing with Jeff from Cobra, and we can talk about challenges and ways to approach using Cobras, because more and more people are using them, and they're great, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm pretty happy with this, even if it is kind of maybe I'll call this painting a big dumb Prince song. No, I can't talk on the phone right now. There's a phone call I just can't take right now. Um, Maybe I'll just call this a big dumb Prince song, but I'm pretty happy with it. So next, I took a 4 foot by 4 foot canvas. The center picture is my 20 by 20 projection. So I did exactly the same sort of thing, except this time 48 by 48. So the upper left picture is my acrylics, and that's me just putting the acrylics down. That really took about, what, 25 minutes. The projection takes about half an hour to trace, and then putting the paint down, just using the chip brush and a short flat synthetic, about 25 minutes, half an hour to put the underpainting down. There it is on my easel with Studio Cat Corduroy giving me the hairy eyeball in the foreground. And then yesterday afternoon, I spent about 4.5 hours, and this is where this is at the moment. And I thought it'd be fun to show the original photograph. I'm now so far away from that original photograph in my playing with this. My references are now other versions of this painting. Now on this one, I sharpened the line of the cupola on the left and I lost it on the right. I'm going to change that back. I like it better losing it on the left and sharpening it on the right. And I'm going to play a lot. The values right now are really high. The key of this, the darkest dark is what, about a value, well, I guess it's about a value 5. And so it'll be moving around. I don't want it to be as reddish as the last one. I want to keep it a little cooler and see where it goes. Jeff asks, do I work horizontally on the table or vertically on the easel? I work, my dictum is by whatever means necessary. When it's on the table, I move around on it. I do work vertically on the easel. Do I work horizontally on the table or vertically on the? Well, I work at the beginning doing those acrylic underpaintings. I do those horizontally because they would drip constantly if they were vertical, and I did want to keep the snow in the foreground white. Lynn asks, trace, can I expand on that? Earlier on, I said I was working from those pencil sketches, and I project them onto the, once I've got the pencil sketch in place, I feel comfortable projecting that so that the proportions are basically right when I'm working this large. It's just a way of saving time. Yeah, I do not advocate it as a means of teaching yourself how to draw. It's a terrible way to teach yourself how to draw. It's totally a crutch, but it's a wonderful way to make a image that you've got laid out the way you want it to make it large. Let's see. Jim says, on the photo reference, I like that the road metaphorically bypasses the elevator. Any thought on doing a version like that? Yeah, I like that too, but I may play up the verticals that are I've got right now in the front of the elevator. Maybe I will, Jeff. Maybe I will. Who knows? Anyway, that's the process that I go through in taking a literal image and turning it into a painting. I want to demystify it because I feel that people often think that there's something, almost alchemy. It's mostly just getting very, very familiar with the shapes. That's why I do the sketches. That's why I do the watercolor studies, turning it over in my mind until I have a composition that seems to embody what I'm trying to reach. It's not mysterious. And if I could urge people to do one thing, it would be to just don't think of it as being this thing that only the people who know something that you don't know how to do. None of us really know what we're doing. And we mostly spend most of our time feeling that we're incompetent at it. Right now, that big new 4 foot by 4 foot, my critical inner voice is saying, God, that's awful, Charles. But I plan to keep working on it until it won't be so awful. Just know that we're all doing the best we can. And I love being a part of helping people to reach that expressive part in themselves. All right, that's all I've got to say today, ladies and gentlemen. I'll take one more gander at comments that have come up. Jim says, it's nice to see the approach. Paul says, have I gone any further with the concept of the gesso velatura? I've since forgotten what a velatura was. I know I talked about I talked about it recently, but no, so I haven't. But maybe I will. And a bunch of people. Oh, Jeff says, after having done these paintings, how do I feel about including the trees? I'm thinking it might be fun to bring them in again. I think I may just bring them in again, Jeff. We'll see. I'll let you all know what comes down in the future. And you all take good care. We'll see you next week. I think next week, I believe we have a actual guest. Yeah, I think we're going to have Carl Bosch. I got to make sure that that's all in place. So you all take good care. Keep painting. And don't let that critical inner voice get you down. We're all struggling. And I'll put that Chris Whitley song and the Fred Eaglesmith song up in the comments. Take good care. Bye-bye.